Those who choose to devote their careers to engineering tend to come with a specific set of skills: curiosity, an innovative spirit, a drive to solve problems or make something easier. These remain constant. What is changing, however, is how engineers advance in their careers, find bigger jobs at better companies, and then become leaders. I'm Michelle Dawn Mooney, your host of TE Connectivity's Our Connected World podcast. Here to help us navigate the evolving dynamic in the engineering workspace is Malavika Sagar, who is the Chief Human Resources Officer at TE Connectivity, which employs about 10,000 engineers among their global workforce of 90,000 people. By those numbers alone, it's obvious that she has watched the careers of many an engineer grow over the years. Malavika, thank you so much for joining us today.
Michelle, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Great to have you. So let's start off with what it takes to get through an interview process and secure a new job, especially earlier in your career. I understand it is not all about GPAs or degrees or even prior job titles as much nowadays.
Michelle, that's a great question because things are shifting, as you rightly said. When you think about degrees and GPAs, credentials, technical depth is something that's still going to matter. But at the end of the day, that is just something that is the ticket, right, to the dance. Employers really want to know what makes you stand out in the crowd and why is it that they should be choosing you to work at their company. If you really think about it, the competition for talent is now a global one, right? So when you think about talent, there are engineers that are graduating all around the world. I read a stat recently where, in India and China, as an example, there's about 1 million engineers that are graduating each year. So it's no longer competing with people that are in your school or your college alone, right? You're really competing in a global talent marketplace. There's also an ever-changing world. Things are shifting every day. Geopolitics, dynamics between countries. So agility from a company standpoint is key. Companies want to know, are you agile? Will you be able to make changes as needed in order to structure your job in a way that is best for the customer? So what is it that sets you apart? And it really has to be that. What do you bring to the table in terms of skills, in terms of curiosity, innovation, drive for results, ownership mindset, right? Those are the kinds of things that you need to be talking about when you're looking for a job. It's this idea of shifting to a little bit more of a skill-based mindset and skill-based job search. It's about looking beyond your education and your technical skills and really focusing on answering questions around, are you somebody that would take the initiative? Do you think outside the box? Do you collaborate with others, right? Do you work with the speed that the customer needs? Answering these questions with concrete examples will set you apart as a candidate. It's just not about what you know anymore today, right? It's about how are you going to take that knowledge and apply that and give your employer the confidence that you're the right one for the role.
Especially when it comes to the world of technology. I know that's a big change, big shift from when I was making my way early on in my career. So what does that mean for today's job candidates? Because AI is everywhere and we're using it as a tool and, recruiters are using it as a tool as well. So how does that change everything?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I think, resumes will detail your projects and your accomplishments, right? But we really want to know how you think. What problems did you solve? What challenges did you encounter? How did you make the trade-offs? What judgments did you exercise? Engineering is never about perfect conditions, right? So we have lots of constraints in engineering: cost constraints, time constraints, quality constraints, safety-related issue, customer requirements, manufacturing cycle time that needs to be met. How did you navigate all of these constraints and yet improve what you needed to do in order to support your time to market or product creation, right? As a candidate, these are the kinds of things you need to be talking about. Now, depending on your experience level, you may not have all of these pieces of experience, right? But how do you then use the experiences that you had in your internships, in your university projects? Maybe you did a passion project and it gave you exposure to some of these things, right? How do you talk about that in a way in which it helps an employer understand that you have what it takes from a skills perspective to keep pushing? But one of the things I always recommend to candidates is be really specific about your impact. What did you do in order to improve something? And can you quantify that? Can you talk about how you improved efficiency? How did you simplify a process, right? That's really important for an employer to walk away with in that interview process, that a candidate was able to tangibly do something different. The other thing I'd say is make sure you show curiosity, right? At the end of the day, there's so many things that are changing around us in the world around us. It's really important that we remain curious, we remain hungry to learn. And employers are really looking for that, right? There's emerging tools. Michelle, you talked about AI. AI is a really good example of that, right? You don't need to position yourself as an expert in AI, right? What you do need to do is position yourself as someone who's hungry to learn new things and creates a learning environment where they experiment and then they're curious and agile. So that's what you want to leave, your interviewer with. When engineering skills evolve, you have to be using AI, but there's an element of exercising human judgment as well. There's an element of taking the information and the data that AI is going to help you put together in a faster and much more efficient way. And then you're going to need to use that and use your judgment to evaluate, is it right for your business? Is it right for the customer? How would you make changes? How can you anticipate what is next proactively and with speed? Those are innately human. And I think even though AI is going to help us a lot, and it's going to certainly help us get much more efficient, some of these skills around, looking around corners, as an example, is still an innately human skill. And that's what we're going to want to see in our engineers. This really should be your focus in an interview. How do you demonstrate that you have the strategic capabilities to think about what's ahead? And that's what companies are really looking for nowadays, Michelle.
And you made such great points there, Malika, because it's not just what you know anymore. It's how are you using those skills? And as you said, that hunger. So what about the companies doing the hiring here? Why are they making this shift? And then how is it impacting the hiring process with everything that you just mentioned?
Right. Listen, I mean, work is changing, right? So the skills that are needed are going to change as well. If you think about engineering, it's becoming increasingly interdisciplinary. So what that means is, as an engineer, you need to know about customer applications, you need to know about manufacturing, you need to understand quality control, you need to understand supply chain and what those constraints are. And now you need to understand AI and how best to use it, right? So companies are not just assessing what you have done, but rather what you can do with all of this information, how you can build the right networks and connections to get information and do what is needed in order to get to the right solution. So companies are shifting to this skill-based hiring method, like I talked about. And it's not just anymore about past experiences. It's about the skills that you are picking up from the various experiences that you had, and how are you going to apply that, right? If as companies we start looking at a very narrow set of capabilities specific to just one job, we really miss out on people who have the capabilities that we need, not just for that one job, but also for our future. So we have to be thinking about things differently as well.
I want to take it a step further. So we've landed the job. The person is securely in the door. Does that skills based mindset impact their career trajectories?
I would say absolutely yes, and maybe even more once you're in the job, right? So career growth is no longer linear. If you think about it, sometimes you have to go sideways in order to go up in your career. And it's not about a title anymore. It's about those skills that you picked up, those experiences that you had, and can you translate that into something meaningful? Can you translate that in order to make improvements in your job? So, do you understand the customer? Do you understand manufacturing? Do you understand quality? Do you understand how to lead a team at scale? Can you influence your peers? How do you communicate as an engineer? Do you communicate in a simple style that helps a non engineer understand? Because you're working across the enterprise now, these skills are really, really important. So, it's no longer about chasing titles, right? It's about making sure that you're focusing on the right experiences that can continue to help you grow your skills and your career. So it becomes even more important once you're within the organization, because now you have to learn that complexity of the organization and navigate that as well.
So I want to ask you, across industries, HR teams are now using AI, as we've talked about several times, to screen their candidates. So what would you say are the best ways now to get this technology to notice you? Because you mentioned there are so many more people in reach globally now that we can, look to for the hiring process. So What are some things we can do to stand out?
No, it's a tough question, right? Because AI is also evolving every day. I hear a lot of stories about people who try to beat the bot or outsmart the selection process. But honestly, I do think it's a waste of time because ultimately these technologies continue to get more and more sophisticated. So I think the best way is to be your authentic self. Make sure that you show who you are and what you can offer. Be clear about what makes you stand out, like we talked about, and why you're a good fit for the company and the job that you're applying for. Uh, Quantifying your impact, as we discussed, is going to be really important. And remember, AI today is just still in the selection process. We're a little bit of ways to go before we can get AI to run an entire recruiting process. So you will still need to demonstrate judgment and demonstrate agility, proactivity, and some of the skills that we talked about in the interview process as well. So I'd say, worry less about beating the bot and worry more about how do you make your skills stand out so that you can be clear with your employer on what you can offer to them.
I want to look at this from a different angle for a minute. It's obviously important for job candidates to understand how AI is impacting their review, but what about a company's customers? Does AI integration in human resources matter to them in any way?
Customers may not really see HR systems, right? But if it's well done, they should feel the outcomes of what a strong talent system and process is within the company. So if we can identify our talent faster, if we can develop our people, if we can ramp them up when they start with us sooner, if we can ensure that we close gaps on capabilities that we identify, I think we can respond to customers faster and much more effectively. We can be much more proactive with them rather than being reactive. So AI can certainly help a human resources organization with productivity, create a fit for purpose organization. Workforce planning is something that is very important as we think about the future capabilities that are needed to help our customers, to help our organization and to anticipate some of these skill sets as well. And I also think when it comes to developing our talent, some of these learning maps for talent, it is going to be much easier to create a path for learning and upskilling through the use of AI. So, there's going to be a lot of improvements that come into the human resource organization around simplification, around design of processes, and it should help us get to a faster turnaround time, innovation, and alignment, which is all what the customer needs at the end of the day. So I do think that, even though they may not see it right away, they should be able to feel the outcomes if done right.
Malvika, we are almost at the end of our time here. Before we go, any final thoughts?
Yeah. So when you think about engineering careers, as an engineer, you should really be thinking about it like you're solving an engineering problem. Think about it intentionally, approach it with curiosity, keep learning, and seek challenging experiences. And when you get all of that, make sure that whatever you do, you show impact, right? Technical depth is always going to matter. So you've got to continue to build your technical capabilities, but your success is going to be about how agile you are, how you show good judgment, are you proactive in how you solve problems, and can you look around the corner to anticipate what's next? Can you see the customer's problem beyond just the technical requirement that they've asked you to solve? So build that skill because that's going to be a really critical skill for you. What many engineers do is that they're very intentional about creating their plan, but they forget about making their aspirations known. So talk to your manager, make sure you develop mentors in the organizations. Mentors have typically gone through some of the same challenges as you're experiencing, and they can help you navigate a lot of landmines. So ensure that you are seeking out a good mentor that can help you navigate your career and then chart your course, right? You are the best architect of your career. Nobody else is going to care about it as much as you do. So make sure you're very deliberate about it, you're very intentional about it.
Absolutely, and a great challenge to us all, Malvika, because whether or not you're looking for a job, we should all be learning those skill sets and wanting to learn more and figure out ways that we can get more out of what we're already doing. So appreciate your time, appreciate your thoughts, and hopefully very helpful for people who are in the job searching scene right now. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it.
And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening to the Our Connected World podcast. And to find out more information about TE connectivity, you can visit te.com, or maybe even investigate career possibilities all around the world at careers.te.com. I'm your host, Michelle Dawn Mooney. Thanks again for joining us. We hope to connect with you on another podcast soon.